Would you like to be somebody who understands why people nowadays tend to aim at solving society's greatest problems and overlook the small problems that lie within their inner circle? Then listen to this entire video where I explain how actually our instincts are primed to want to solve what is in our environment, in our direct environment, and we don't fully grasp the magnitude of society's immense problems and how this conflict is actually creates suffering within ourselves. So before we get into this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, Jungian psychology, and how to reduce suffering in life. Let's get into it. So a lot of adolescents nowadays dream of saving the world from destruction, whether it is climate destruction or societal destruction like gentrification. Now, you can understand why. Because our top media channels broadcast the urgency of these disastrous problems like wildfires and deforestation. Hence, kids, who still have a somewhat innocent mind want to save these animals from an unjust death. And that's understandable. And I think it's great to be altruistically oriented, of course, without being naive. Yet there is a serious downside to the overvaluation of aiming to cure the world from these monumental challenges, because people overlook the problems that can be solved with a small scale influence in their they overlook these small scale problems in order to hone in on the enormous civilization threatening problems. One reason for that is because people nowadays have a very Newtonian concept of the world. People believe change only occurs if you push something actively. So, or else, everything will stand still, more or less. Like, you need to invest energy in order for an object to be put in motion. Like, that's sort of like one of Newton's laws of physics. And with a small nudge, you cause a small change. With a big nudge, you cause a phenomenal change. The type of change needed to change the world, to save the world. Now, with the prevalent belief system of scientific rationalism nowadays, which is founded upon metrics used to measure the world, numbers, and the realm of rationality. So that's sort of the main belief system we have nowadays. And people tend to measure the magnitude of society's problems with the instrument of science and can obviously conclude that these problems have the largest dimensions. Along with the rational mindset, you have this automatic orientation towards the aim of being as effective as possible. You want to solve the biggest problems because then you'd save the most people, the most animals, and you'd solve all of these sub-problems at once. You'd hit two birds with one stone. That would be effective, and then naturally, the small-scale problems would seem inefficient or ineffective to solve because they won't change the world. They won't save the world. And I think vast portions of our society are possessed by the idea that there's not much point in fixing these small problems because that won't change the world. And as a consequence, the small problems are overlooked. And I disapprove of this mindset because it brings people into a kind of a gridlock, which prevents the small-scale problems to be solved. And I'll explain why that is actually a problem, because society's problems are an sort of like an extrapolation of people's small-scale problems. The root of society's problems lies within the individual, within the unit of the individual, I think, yeah. Okay, but the problem here is, I think humans have an instinct to solve the problems that lie within their direct environment. Most people internally know what they would need to attend themselves to in order to enhance the quality of their lives. We instinctually know what problems we face. Like Jordan Peterson has this idea that you should sit on your bed, and then ask yourself, what are 3 things I would need to do in order to make myself feel like I achieved something today and which would make my life as like a like marginal step better than my life was today. What are three things I would need to do? And you immediately know, or it'll come to you what needs to be attended to, what needs to be solved, what needs to be fixed in your life. It's just instinctually. It's like you have this autonomous voice within you that will tell you what those problems are, like an instinct, this intuition. And this instinct may have evolved to be a prime instinct because it helps us survive. Very simple. You could categorize problems, all kind of problems, just the nature of problems, as those things which make us suffer and eventually die. Let's say you're in a relationship and your partner, your spouse, terrorizes you. They sort of oppress you, kind of. They're really mean, and they blackmail you, and they terrorize your life, and that makes you suffer. And it creates a lot of stress for you, and stress deteriorates your body. You're exhausted, and you become miserable, and if you're miserable, your body feels that misery, and it suffers from that, and essentially your body deteriorates faster and you die earlier. And of course your genome wants to avoid that, hence it would try and focus on, okay, I have a problem, my partner is terrorizing me, this is a problem that needs to be fixed because it threatens my survival, my well-being. And then you'll attend yourself to that partner and try to fix it. Hence, in order to protect the human species and your genes, you're fundamentally configured to solve the problems that threaten your survival. Now, because for the vast majority of human history, individuals have lived relatively segregated from other humans that live, let's say, on the other side of the globe, let alone on the other side of the country. This is due to reasons like basic, very simple communication systems one had back then, no internet, and inefficient transportation. Hence, throughout history, the human genome was never occupied with these colossal problems that threaten the entire planet, or at least not all of these huge problems all at once. Thus, the human biology is not primed to suddenly be able to diffuse civilization-threatening problems, because we are the product of millions of years of evolution, and we cannot evolve at the same rate as our information systems and our technological power have. Like, we suddenly are connected to everybody in the world within a few years, yet our biology evolved over millions of years, not a few years. Hence, our biology is not able to adapt as quickly to the severity of these problems, the magnitude of these problems that we are facing. And what occurs is that internally and instinctually, humans want to solve the problems that exist in their environment, because that's what the genome is used to and what it is primed to do. It anticipates that. Yet they are encouraged now, people in society, to be drawn in and encouraged to solve the big scale problems instead. Obviously, if you're occupied with one problem, you can't be occupied with another problem. So if you're focused on the big ones, you can't focus on the small problems. Firstly, that is an issue because people put their own inefficiencies on hold and don't fix them. That's detrimental because really the core of most of humanity's problems, I think, lies within the individual, at the individual level. The individual is dissatisfied and embodies a volatile, destructive energy that is not at peace, which then finds its way into its environment, and the human releases that, let's say, destructive energy on its environment, hence environmental destruction. So you could probably solve climate change maybe by taking a look at in the mirror, sort of figuratively, as a person. Secondly, I think humans might also suffer from pathologies as a result of detaching themselves from the guidance of this instinct to focus on the small-scale problems. Their instinct, their heart, desires to focus on these problems that their intuition can sense, and these problems tend to lie in their direct environment, because their instinct, as I said, is not equipped with the instruments needed to detect and solve civilization-threatening problems due to our evolutionary history, as I explained. So it's kind of like a dissociation from reality, because you're not acknowledging what your instinct wants you to fix, and that's not good. That, like, your body is is in some sense quite intolerant. If you're not listening to it, it'll let you know that you're not listening to it by making you suffer and it creating some sort of like pathological symptoms, let's say. Yeah. So in conclusion, the small scale problems might actually be the most effective ones to solve societal problems, because if you look at it like this, if every human pulls their weight and fixes the problems in their close, direct environment, then all problems will be solved, because big problems are simply an accumulation of small-scale problems. And obviously, if you fix all the small ones, the big ones are solved. And people override this instinct to solve the small problems, because they are just overwhelmed by the magnitude of the big ones and how frightening they are. Hence, they sort of reallocate their focus to those problems, and that's dangerous, because you're overriding an instinct, and your let's say your genome doesn't like that, I would say. So please leave a comment below whether you disagree or agree with my belief that the small scale problems are really the best ones to solve, and the big ones will be solved as a consequence of fixing the small ones, and the big ones are actually, I think they're also kind of misleading, because they encourage like a messiah complex. It's this idea that you want to assist and support and save everybody or save the world, which is it has narcissistic traits to it also. Like, people can be pulled into thinking, well, I'm saving the world, hence I'm better than everyone else. And I actually think that happens quite frequently nowadays. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, Jungian psychology, and how to reduce suffering in life. Thank you for listening.